Good evening, folks. So, another video, another trade today. And this trade was actually a break-even trade, and it came after my session. And I'm kind of just gonna discuss the outcome of that trade, why I took the trade, and of course just break it down. But as you can see, I've got a few annotations on the screen, and this is basically my notes prior to my session. So the session started here at 6. So we'd had a support, we'd had a resistance, and this candle, which is the first candle of the open 30-minute time frame, formed the support. So got this support zone, we've got the most recent resistance zone, and I've also got a support zone in here, which kind of is where these wicks reacted from. So the session for today, the bias was sells, was bearish, right? But because we were so bullish in the market, and because we basically pushed up and created a new high, I was just seeing this as a pullback. You know, sales made sense, but I just didn't really fancy selling. You know, the more I kind of review the session, look at the clean areas, there was options to get into sales, but for me, I was just focused on buys, and just how price was actually forming at the time. We're sort of creating like a strong support here in a sense, and we did get a break up and out above the most recent resistance, and this was at 7. So, you know, if this was a bullish bias, I would be buying on this candle. Alright, but the reason I didn't buy on this candle was because we're buying against the 4-hour, the two 4-hour candles which create my bias, and they were both bearish. So I was actually having a chat with Amber today about this, and what I was saying was any push and break and close above could just be a deeper retracement for the wick creation of that 4-hour to then continue down in line with the bias, similar to what we had here. We had a break below Asian low, we had formed a support, and then we continued. So it's the exact same in reverse. We had a break above, form resistance, continue down. So if I just bring on my annotations, you know, again, although the session bias is bearish, I'm not a fan of selling. You know, I'm seeing Asian similar to last week, as in this is just a pullback for further upside, and selling into a previous support. I mean, I didn't really like selling into this. Essentially, if I was looking at this chart, I would say, well, sales below here made sense, or we'd maybe provide a cleaner opportunity or cleaner area. But again, when price gets to there, what are you going to have? Are you going to have structure? How big's your stop going to be? Where's your target going to be? Does it make sense? And again, I'd sort of identified above this area, buys made more sense for me. And again, I've noted here that this could just be a deeper retracement for a higher wick for continuation to the downside. So for me, I wanted to see a higher support in here. So I wanted to see price closing above, price pulling back into this previous level of structure, holding support, failing to break down, and forming a support on 30-minute minimum, 1 hour, and then I could look to buy that to that target, and ultimately potentially look to push up to there, in a sense that this is a cleaner move to the downside to try and replicate that on the way up. And I just have a couple of little pointers based on this week. You know, we've kind of seen the volume present on London Open this week, 7:30, 8 o'clock, the largest candles being the 8 o'clock candle. And again, the exact same thing happens today. We've got the largest candle of the session at 8 o'clock. We've got the volume coming at 8 o'clock. So knowing that we have closed above, and the 7:30 candle formed the resistance, if we start to push down and say the candle flips and we get a strong push to the upside, and it's evident that volume's in the market, that could be an indication to potentially get involved on breaks of this high and look to try and capitalize on such a move. Now, I don't know how big the move's going to be, but if volume is in the market, then there's a good chance that you can get a strong push, or at least get into a position where you can manage a position, or get into profitable position, close out, or maybe move stops and things like that. But Of course, the bias is bearish, so when the volume came in, it came in line with that bias, so price did break down. Now, where price broke down to, again, is our breakout area. So we've came back here. Let me just take these off. We've came back to here and rejected this strongly. So when I actually got involved in a buy, I'm just going to come out of the replay tool, and this is currently what price has done. So we've pushed down, reacted, rejected again, and we've then formed a support on the 4 hour. So where I actually got involved is here, and it was based off of this 1 hour close. The reason for this trade was what I was seeing was we had pushed down. The next candle at 9 o'clock had formed a support. So the 9 to 10 candle, which is the last hour of the 4 hour, which is this wick creation, formed this support. The next hour of the new 4 hour candle opened, we pushed down, we respected this support, and we closed bullish. So what I'm seeing on the lower time frames is after such a, well, first and foremost, after such a bearish move and a strong impulse down with volume, I'm expecting price to be down here. Or why are these candles not red and we're not pushing down in line with the volume, right? So the fact that we're not shows me the price doesn't really want to go down, right? So the fact that we formed a support, the next candle then pushed up, pushed down, failed to break and close below, and actually closed above. So what price has done on the lower time frames is change structure to the upside. And if I just drop the 30-minute time frame, we can kind of see it not evident as much on the 30, but on the 15, this is what we're doing. So this is a prime entry here. You've got your resistance, failed to push down, close above, change in structure, enter. But I just didn't like entering here because I wanted the 4 hour to close, and at this time I was sort of working, and I was just kind of flicking back and forth to see what was happening because I was interested in the fact that we hadn't broken down here. So I was thinking, is this the potential of just this being the overall bigger picture? And if we start to fail to break down here and we change structure, is this going to be the start of the move up? And it's just a deeper retracement and kind of bearish structure within the overall bullish higher time frame idea. So that was the idea. So as soon as this closed, I got involved, and what I liked was we broke and closed back inside Asian range. So just looking at this time frame alone, you know, what you could say is, well, your target should be this resistance, right? But my idea for this trade was, I'm having a really good week. I'm entering on a solid confirmation. I'm sort of looking at a bigger picture. I'm looking to potentially complete this or push up into here. So I'm expecting this to be broken, right? Now, I understand it's a tough area and it's not going to be broken just straight away. But the idea was to get into a trade and see what we do if we push up and then make a decision. So the idea to manage the position as well was well, if we start to break back below Asian range, which is roughly around here at 490, because what I was thinking was, well, let me just take off this long position. What I was thinking was, well, what if we form a resistance here and we start to push down, right? That's a possibility because overall on the intraday, we have a bearish session prior and we are moving down, creating lower resistance. But this is a target, you could say. This is just a pullback to create a lower resistance to continue this move, right? So that was an option. But my sort of counter to that was, well, this had formed a support and this candle had pushed down and respected this support and closed above it. So I was seeing that as a sign to the upside. Now, there's three things that can happen when I enter this trade. Three things, three plays, three outcomes. We either get a strong push and we close above. We either form a lower resistance and push down, or we form a higher support, right? So when I was in this trade, price instantly, we sort of worked down a little bit and price instantly pushed up, right? So at the time of me being in the trade, I was actually in 0.5%. I was up 0.5%, right? Because that's where we are there, right? And usually based on my rules and my management and, you know, the way things are working for me, I could have just closed this trade out, right? But the thought process wasn't to do that. The thought process was, I'm having a good week, I can afford to get into a position and let it play out. If it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, that's fine. And what I actually done was, at this time we were up 0.5%. What I was thinking was, if we can close above here, then that's a good sign, because any sort of pullback, these sort of levels here, can act as areas where price might react at, right? So the fact that we did close below and right here wasn't really a good sign for me, because, you know, there's obviously multiple things that can happen. We can just form a lower resistance, react off this. We're pushing into 4-hour levels and stuff, so there is quite a lot of reaction going on in this area. So what I done was, at this time I was up approximately 38 pips, right? And at the time of being up 0.5%, 38 pips, what I done to protect myself was I moved my stop loss to break even, right? And because what I said was, the reason I done that was because I was up 40 pips. My get out of jail clause was if we actually close below Asian low, right? Or push below Asian low. So I said to myself, if I'm already up 40 pips, why should I allow myself or allow price to come back 40 pips and then come back a potential 20 pips, 20 extra pips? So in total, come back 60 pips and then come out of the trade as a loss. Now, the loss would be a minor loss, so it wouldn't be, you know, a big deal. But the fact that I was so far ahead, I didn't want to take that loss. It kind of felt to me it was unnecessary to do so. And the more I talk about this and the more I think about this, if that was the case and that was my thought process, then I probably should have just closed the trade, right? But of course, the reason I didn't close the trade was because the thought process was to see if we can actually break these levels. You know, because if this was just a normal trade for me, I would have been targeting this, or at least the zone, and closing it at 0.5, understanding that we have a 4-hour resistance, we have a 4-hour support, we have an hourly resistance, we have Asian high resistance. There's quite a lot of, you know, potential areas that can block price, or price where price can stall at. So that's the reason why I didn't. And I thought the best decision at the time was to at least go to break even, right? You're having a good week. You know, you've got yourself into a profitable position. Just let it play out, right? If it works out, then brilliant. If it comes back to break even, then it's no loss, right? And of course, what happened was price pulled down. We did form the lower resistance. So this could have potentially been an option to sell. But then we formed that higher support. We couldn't continue. We formed a higher support. Again, you could say, well, this is an additional area to potentially get involved, because this is just stronger confirmation and getting in here. Obviously, when I got involved here, there was no structure, right? So there was no higher support to give that additional confirmation. So this could have just been a pullback to continue down. But the fact that price then formed that higher support is an extra confirmation that, right, we're likely not going to go down here. We're either going to continue up, or what we're going to do is we're going to push up, reject at these areas again, and then we're just going to range, right, before we make a decision. So I come out of the trade at break even, and of course, as you can see, price is actually playing out nicely. And I think I have my target in the round. It was kind of just like 1-to-1, but it was sort of positioned in and around this sort of zone here. But my idea was, like, if we can sort of get above this, there is a clean candle on the way down, so that might give, maybe we could complete that, but it's a big ask. but as well there's a monthly level here, clean traffic sort of above around this area, so 1-to-1 sort of aligned there well, and as you can see price is kind of approaching that. But the reason, again, just as I kind of touch on my reason for going to break even, I don't usually do that when I typically trade, because it sort of limits, you know, you may as well just close in that sense. But the fact that I was so far in a profitable position of like 40 pips, I didn't want to risk the potential that this could pull back and either come down here or either sit through drawdown to hold a higher support. You know, essentially what I could have then said was, well, Kevin, instead of getting involved here, wait for your higher support, because of where we are in the previous session, Baz being bearish and these reaction levels, it is likely we might see a reaction. But I thought I would just do that trade breakdown. Yes, it was a break-even trade, but that was my thought process to get involved with this trade. My management and my sort of thoughts on the trade itself there. But yeah, no, you know, no loss. A trade that's potentially going to work out from an analysis perspective, which is good. However, you would have had to sit through drawdown, so it wouldn't have been the best trade, but it most likely is going to be a winning trade in that sense from an analysis perspective. But I'll get this one uploaded, and yeah, that's my thoughts on my trade from today. So peace.